Hi guys, nice to see you, or nice that you could see me. Welcome to our video for weekly topic. But before we get started, I'm standing in this very awkward place outside because I wanted to show you guys my favorite tree to watch in the fall. So I'm gonna show you and then we'll come back to it. See that tree right there? That tree right there is my favorite tree, and it's like the nose to just kind of shine the light throughout the fall as I watch the leaves change. And we're getting ready to move, so I might miss some of the change, although we're not moving very far at all. So welcome to this week's topic. We are talking about something like all the other weeks that all of us struggle or face at some point in our life, and that is shame. This emotion is really difficult because shame is hidden. We hide this one really well. Kind of like loneliness, shame is something that we do not like to talk about because it's just the nature of it. Carl Jung described shame, I think, perfectly. He said, shame is a soul-eating emotion. And that is so true because it just tears us away from who we were created, who we were meant to be. If you find yourself thinking things like, you're not lovable, you hear that voice that says, you're too much, your personality is too big, they can't handle you. Or maybe you hear the opposite, that voice says, you're just not enough for them. Maybe you hear things like, you can't do this, they've always said you couldn't and they're right, whoever they are. The voice may say, who do you think you are? That is one voice I've heard a lot in my life. Anytime I think I want to try something or do something, I've heard that voice. Who do you think you are to try and do that? We all have that inner critic, inner dialogue that shames us and makes us shrink. Everyone experiences shame, but not everyone is ruled or overcome by it. Shame basically is feeling unlovable, undeserving. You have a very harsh inner dialogue with yourself, maybe wanting to disappear, constant self-blame. Those are the things that make up shame. So if any of this is resonating with you, tune in because I want to talk about that. Here's the biggest takeaway from dealing with shame. We are not born into our thought habits. We form them from a very young age. You weren't born with the way that you think about yourself. I need you to hear that. You weren't born the way that you think about yourself. So often I think we think it's part of our personality, or this is just who I am to think ugly thoughts about myself, or that I'm not enough, or whatever. You weren't born that way. You formed those habits. Here's the good news. If we formed them, we can unform them. We get to reform them. That's the good news when it comes to shame. It takes work, but it can be done, and it is life-giving. It's like somebody giving you wings when you learn to reform the thoughts that you have that bring shame or cause you to live under the umbrella of shame. Overcoming shame is not easy, but here's a few ways that we can do it. First, we have to witness the inner dialogue. We have to pay attention. Stop walking around in a cloud. Stop walking around just allowing your thoughts to take over and to rule you. We have to cultivate self-compassion. I think Brene Brown, she's the one who does a lot of work in this area on shame, and she said it well. The thing that counters shame is empathy. And so we have to cultivate first self-care, self-compassion, empathy for ourselves. And then, here's where I think power comes, is we have to bring whatever we feel shame over into the light. Bring it out, because when we bring light into something where we feel shame, it takes the power away from it. So share it with a trusted friend, an empathetic friend. And here's the caution, choose well, choose wisely on that, who you share that with, but share the shame and it takes the power away. Don't isolate yourself from community. The more we become alone, the more shame has a louder voice. We start to understand and we get empathy and we get around people and we hear the things that they talk about and we inside say, oh, me too. I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who feels this way. Community helps us fight back and put barriers against shame. Here's where I want to give you an encouragement and caution you. If you are around children, you raise children, you work with children, be really mindful, very mindful that when you are correcting them, that you are correcting them and not shaming them. So here are phrases that we start out with that often are followed with something that creates shame. We might say to our kids, why would you fill in the blank? Or don't you know? You should know. How could you? Those are instincts that we want to say to a child, and usually it's followed with some sort of correction that is wrapped in shame, and I want you to be careful and be mindful of that. Also when you're talking to adults, but especially with children, because they are growing and soaking it up like a sponge, and we want to be as careful as possible not to give them more voice to any shame that they are going to encounter in their life. Y'all, this is such a deep, spongy subject, and I know so many of us have something to share on this. So Thursday night at 7:30 live, let's talk about it. This one is a deep dive topic, as they all are, but this one especially. So I'll see you Thursday night.